Right, so it's 3 p.m. and we are all set to begin with our today's webinar. Once again, I welcome all our participants to this exciting series where HR Association of India, along with Great Manager Institute, brings before you the 2022 Dialogue Masterclass series on the topic Leading People in the Current Times. Great Manager Institute conducts a Great People Managers survey in India and have come up with the list of top 100 managers. And the recognition is powered by Forbes India and Great Manager Institute, where we are fortunate to have three managers from the esteemed list who would be sharing their success stories, mantras, hits and misses, and achievements over leading their team in current times. To know more about HR Association of India and Great Manager Institute, I would request all our participants to visit the link posted in the chat window. I request all the participants to kindly follow the webinar guidelines mentioned in the chat window. It's my privilege to introduce Mr. Amitabh Ray, Managing Director, Ericsson Global Services. I would also like to congratulate him over this achievement. A CEO, a passionate leader, a futurist, an author, a prolific blogger, a remarkable speaker, or even being labeled as the most promising business leader of Asia 2020-21 by the Economic Times. None of these quite describe Amitabh Ray. He is the undisputed chief motivational officer of and his passion for caring for people. The art of conflict management and knowing how to coalesce diverse views to achieve shared objectives for the larger good of the organization and his native skill. Amitabh's long career has been an exciting journey of building teams, strategizing, leading, and executing the transformation journeys of three centurion organizations PwC, IBM, and currently Ericsson. You can follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Before we start with the session, I would request all participants to switch on their camera if possible so that our speaker can be more comfortable interacting with you. Once again, congratulations, Mr. Amitabh, and we are extremely excited to have you here. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. Hope I am audible okay. And
Yes, you're audible.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it's truly exciting to come and share our experience with esteemed colleagues, from different HR organizations. I think this is not about the talk; it is about more about experience sharing. Um, I would certainly encourage all of you to give me the feedback and then also uh, make this session more interactive, because I am going to talk about my perspective, and there is no single perspective which is true. There are multiple perspectives which are kind of uh, can give us a much better idea about things, how it is happening around us. So I'll talk for a while, and then maybe we can go for an interactive session or Q&A, and I'm really looking forward to that. And thanks a lot to all of you for your time. So today's topic is leading people in current times. A few days ago, I came across a media report in Times of India, and maybe a lot of you saw, where shareholders have asked the CEO to explain why almost every third employee in the organization was quitting. And this was a large IT company, and the CEO was asked by the shareholders in the shareholder meeting. Um, so on an average, certain industries are witnessing an unprecedented turnover of talent. So leadership, as we know, is struggling to figure out the root cause behind this churn. Human resource team are sending out endless streams of communication, trying their best to keep motivation level high, ensuring that the organization culture continues to help align employee aspiration with the enterprise goal. So looking at the topic, if you see that embedded in the topic are three very important keywords: leading, people, current times. And three are equally important: leading, people, current times. Interestingly, also all three keywords have vividly altered in the recent past. Let's try to understand this change, or rather, transformation, as everything has been reset in the last 2 years. I won't spend much time on talking about pandemic and work from home. I think those been discussed over the last year and a half enough. Okay. So we all know that we hit the pause button in early 2020 and then slowly resumed our life a few months ago. In between, almost 2 years went by when our life changed. Our life changed, but the leadership mantra hasn't changed, while people have. I think this is very important. And this actually keeps inside the mystery of why we are seeing so much of churn, why we are seeing, lack of loyalty, why some people are getting burnt out and all. So leadership mantra hasn't changed, but people have. And we as leaders, people managers or HR heads will have to internalize this fact that you are leading people who are different today than we used to, maybe 10, 20, 30 years back. So I took a deep breath and tried to introspect about how we are addressing the challenges of retention, attrition, engaging, and leading people in current times. What has changed and what hasn't? I don't think that the principle of leadership have changed, but people have. Their aspiration have changed. Their motivating factors have undergone a complete overhaul. Essentially, they are reevaluating life and work. There is a generational shift that is taking place in the organization. And our old ways of approaching these issues are therefore not as effective as they were in the past. And let's take a couple of key items and try to analyze them. One of them is priorities simplified. During the pandemic, and especially during times of quarantine, our priority structure was ruthlessly simplified. Someday, our only focus was to stay alive and keep our loved ones safe. This rise in uncertainty actually caused an increase in mental illness. Many organizations kept marching ahead without recognizing it. Stretch goals remain as stretch goals, despite employees being unable to meet the demand of the current work environment. According to a recent study done by Ernst & Young, EY, that more than half the workforce left a previous job over the past year and a half because of their boss was not empathetic to their struggles at work. And about 50% also said that employees or employers rather were, they continued with this business as usual mentality. And this caused a ripple effect that some expert believes may have contributed to what we are listening these days a lot, the great resignation. A Pew Research study found similar trends, like what E&Y told us. 57% of the workers who quit a job in 2021, which is last year, said they were feeling disrespected at work and was the reason they left. And 45% say lack of flexibility to choose when they put in their hours were reasons why they quit. Because we have also heard a lot of employees complain about major challenge with work-life balance when everything went remote. Okay, a lot of people, nearly half of the women population, said childcare issues were a reason they left the job, and this was basically 48% among those with a child which is 18 years young or younger in the household. So priorities simplified. People really saw that what is important, and then from survival to quality of life. That mindset has changed why we work. So, all of you, when you are leading people in current times, we need to understand that people are not the same as before. I think this is where we are, creating a large gap between the expectation of people and the leaders. The new generation of talent are not burdened with the responsibilities of earlier generations, which is an important point to note. The industrial age generation of the first industrial revolution worked in their job for sheer survival. They never quit even if the bosses were abusive, the wages were not good enough, okay? Because their wages they earned to handle some of the basic requirements. At that time, people were part of the bottommost portion of Maslow's hierarchy of need. People took a job for survival in old days, but that was an era when the boss is always right. That kind of concept worked. But during the second industrial revolution, when automation and electricity changed the means of production, and partially during the information age of the third revolution, employees developed new skills and worked to build a future for their children. This was the generation that spent on educating their children, investing in house, properties, ensuring that the families had a better quality of life. If one actually gets into the deep, into why people worked, then it becomes apparent that at this stage, people actually worked for making quality of life better. And this was the era when my generation grew up. This was an era when the large global companies and their brands started building. The workforce started working not for survival, but as I said, standard of living. Global banks, manufacturing, IT, real estate, also stock market driven economy started booming. People basically get a good salary to pay for the house EMI, the car loan, the children's education loan, etc. So in our generation, of course, the loyalty reduced. And a lot of us in this call actually handled it throughout our career. But the interesting part, I think, loyalty is something which never existed. Earlier, the options were less, and now people get better options, better quality of workplace, better pay, so people could jump a job. Okay, this is pretty much, as I said, our generation. Uh, so we knew how to manage this, right? Uh, Now at the current age, which is information age, or we call it digital age, okay, it is driven by democratization of knowledge, access to limitless information, incredible opportunity to acquire skill. The needs of people also have changed. And I think this is where, when we are leading people in current times, we are making a mistake in understanding the need of the people, which has changed. They're no longer burdened by the need to survive or build a future for their families, but they're driven by a quest to quality of life, of learning new things, of leading a different kind of life where work is only and only a part of their life. The last 2 years have also made this generation realize that, you know, the life and the fragility of life, and they reprioritize their needs based on that. This actually started post 2008 recession, this era. Information became free, internet was everything. People could earn by learning coding on YouTube. Knowledge was no longer hidden and was easily available to people. Now we live in a digital or social era where everything is social. So today's workforce don't worry about survival. Their grandparents took care of that. They don't care about standard of living. Their parents took care of that. So if you say, I will reduce your pay or bind you with a contract, they will say that, okay, thank you, I'll find another job. So what today's workforce need, I think this is what we need to understand. They need something else. They need quality of life, not standard of life. Okay, it means quality of workplace, quality of job, quality of environment, quality of role, opportunity, learning, and reward. And these are very different things than we are used to handle in a workforce from the need perspective. Okay? So what worked in the past won't work now. If one has to lead this generation of talent, then the legacy strategies of people management are unlikely to work any longer. Today, employees are renegotiating their social contract with work. What was once mostly transactional has changed. This is a huge social transformation. And we, the leaders in the organization, the HR fraternity need to internalize this. Employees are no longer looking for safety of employment, right? Which was very, very important some years back. Okay. Rather, they're keener, okay, to embark on a voyage, to learn new things, to work in organization where they can have more fulfilling life. Being a great place to work no longer means that a place has to be in an office. More firms continue to make hybrid work arrangement part of their long-term strategy, and all of you know that better than I do. Leadership is no longer the centerpiece of managing people, but it must be people-centric. Leadership has to sync with the needs of this new generation of employees. Leaders don't understand that they are not responsible for the job. And this is also very, very important. You ask managers, you ask the leaders, and I think they take a lot of accountability, ownership, and which was right in the previous era to take the ownership of the job. So they say, okay, I am responsible, but today's leaders need to understand they are not responsible for the job. They are responsible for those people who are responsible for the job. That's what leaders need to do. Take care of your people. So this means leadership had to lead with a purpose. And I'll come back to this purpose-driven leadership a little later. Okay. There's an even greater need to figure out what is motivating people to work, and then align it with the purpose of the organization, and not the other way around it used to be earlier. Okay. Compassion and empathy is driving engagement and strategy, both for the employees as well for the customers. I'll talk a little bit on the customer side now, because they are the other most important component of the business. Because without talking about business and the environment, I think we will not be able to do a good job in terms of understanding the employee needs and what we need to do as the future leaders or the current leader. So this is important, as the context in which organization and leadership is functioning today has become far too complex. So we need to understand that as well. With too many things that are not within our control, global events, as we know, are joining to create new currents that must be navigated. And let's see how things are changing, right? And how things are changing so fast. Uh, Only the other day, we used to talk about globalization. And a few months back, there is a huge write-up in the Harvard Business Review, and then they talked about it's not globalization anymore, it's globalization. Okay, so globalization becomes globalization, and now countries talking about friendshoring. We talked about offshoring in the past, right shoring. Now it's friendshoring. It describes basically the reshoring of manufacturing because of the geopolitics. The world when our rivers are shrinking because of the climate, lands are, you know, breached, cities are hotter than ever, fires and flood threatens our life and livelihood. The horror of another global war no longer seems like a distant nightmare to us, right? But it is a shocking reality that is knocking on our doors. A world fractured into blocks, choking the free flow of trade and services. Even the universal internet is becoming, some people started calling it called splinternet. Different countries, they're putting different regulation around the internet. They are regulating what you can see as a content and you cannot. So let's look at people leadership in the context of this geopolitical, this socio-economical scenario. It is in this context we have to reimagine the metaphors of leadership, of business, and our economic activities. Right? So it is time for us to go back to basic and figure out why businesses exist, the purpose of our activities, or the purpose of our purpose. As Peter Drucker once, mentioned, and he actually emphasized, the purpose of a business is to create customers. So we cannot look at people in isolation of business. We cannot look at business in isolation of our customers. So the purpose of business is to create customer. That's also the purpose of any business strategy. Make customers and not war. In my experience, in different strategy meetings, most executives spend too much time discussing competitors and not nearly enough time discussing customers, who they are. They are actually the key to the business's success. They are the people who should be our key concern, how they buy, why they buy, and where they buy. Why I'm getting there? Because the moment businesses started focusing more on competitors and not their customers, it became a war. Leaders today need to understand, and you might find it little controversial, but let me say that business is not about winning. I had thought about it long and hard, right, and figured out that business is not about winning or defeating a competition. The moment you don't realize that and you behave in a very different way, and that impacts your people, and that makes your people feel more unsettled, and maybe it creates the disconnect. In 1986, American philosopher uh, James Kersey articulated that there are two types of games. He mentioned that there is a game called finite game and there is a game called infinite game. These are two different types. So what is a finite game? It's like cricket or football or chess, etc. What are the similarities here? In finite game, you have known players. You have a fixed rule. You have fixed time. You know your competition. And you play with a single objective to win. On the other hand, there is called, he mentioned things like infinite game, which is business, life, job, relationship. In infinite game, players are unknown, maybe known, maybe unknown. It means new player can join anytime. Rules are changeable, like every player can play however they want to play. Like if I want to play in a particular way, I am free to play. So rules are, changeable, and players can play however they want to play. And the objective, the sole objective, is to stay in the game as long as possible. That is the biggest characteristics of infinite game, according to James Kersey. There is no finish line, right? So if you now think about it, there is nothing like winning in business, as there is no finish line. Which company said they're the winner in the business? If you go through the list of top 100 companies 50 years back, not 5% exist today. 40 years back, maybe not 7% exist today. So every 10 years, if you take the top 10 companies in the world, you will see more than half of the company in the next 10 years pushed out of that. But they were the top companies, right? So because there's no finish line, there's nothing called winning in business. Take another example. There's no number one being number one in a marriage or a relationship. You cannot say that, okay, this person is the number one in relationship. There's no one wins in global politics. Can you say that this person is the winner in global politics? Maybe today, tomorrow things might change. The equation might totally change. Some new players might come. You can be number one or the first boy or first girl in the class, but there is nothing called winning in education. So far, nobody could say that this person was a winner in the education. Not even Einstein or anybody, right? Because these are infinite game. There is no end line. Education is like that. You can keep on learning. So why I'm saying this? You see, this is about mindset. Current leadership works with the old mindset of trying to put or trying to play infinite game with finite game mindset. How many times you have heard the CEOs or the leaders in the company talking about, we'll have to win this war. We'll have to win this market. This is sports and military actions focuses on winning against a competitor or maybe defeating an opponent. Business is about creating and delivering a value or experience to a customer through innovative products, services, solutions. In business, there is no fixed opponent. Competition changes every time. And critically, unlike sports or war, it is not defined by a timeline within which you'll have to accomplish the objectives. In most sports, there is not more time. It's always winning against someone else. So you need to understand and internalize that you cannot play infinite game with finite mindset. But as I said, still business talks about winning in business. Problem is when we play to win a game, there is no finish line. we have very few predictable outcomes like decline of trust, decline of cooperation. And that is impacting today's workforce because they are looking at things very differently. So what makes football so exciting? Or maybe a cricket tournament like IPL, that there is only one team wins at the end of the season. For one team to win, every other team must lose. The logic of business competition is not anything like this. The most successful companies, those that win big and create the most economic value, worry less about overwhelming the competition than about delegating and rather making their customers happy, delighting their customers more than anything else. The very idea of what we heard when I started my career, that it is about zero sum game. For me to win, you must lose, right? The business is zero sum competition. But it feels like artifact from a long ago era of business. Virtually today, the market becomes so big. Virtually every industry has room for plenty of different winners, each of which is great at serving a distinct piece of that market or a certain set of customers. Correct? Think about it, think about your employee relationship through these lenses. So it is in employee base also, this is not a zero-sum game. That to somebody to succeed, others will have to lose. I think we'll have to change the culture, change the mindset that business is not war. When humans evolved into organizing themselves, organizing for battle, war, it had a very special significance. So military as an organizing way produced successful outcomes in the past. But that type of orientation is now not needed. Today, and actually, for more than a century, the organizing ways for successful outcomes is to build business organization. Business is not war. Boardrooms are not war rooms. And certainly command and control is no longer the best form of organization. And now if you look back into your individual organization and see how leaders are behaving, still, maybe at one point in time that was a successful strategy, but we are following that today. You will understand, what I'm trying to highlight. Sorry. Still, you will find in business meetings we call, army generals, ex-military officials to come and talk about, um, how do you win. In my organization, I have seen we many a time at least asked Indian, cricket captains to come and talk about their winning strategy. This is a very common practice. Now, what I'm saying, do you understand that, that strategy is the only way it can take you is to failure. Because their strategy, they are not bad cricket captains. They are not bad army generals. Because their strategy is for a finite game. 90 minutes of a soccer match or football match is 90 minutes. Okay, with added time, maybe 5 more minutes. But in a business, I worked for 3 centurion companies. 2 of them are more than 140, 45 years old. And we talk about always in the organization that how to ensure the company continues for next 100 years and beyond. It is about of how you keep yourself or stay relevant with all the changes around you. It's not war. And therefore, the moment we start getting inspiration from those war zones and the sports, start using those metaphors in our daily life of managing people, you are basically alienating yourself from your mass, because this generation, they don't care of those things. And then you put on top of that another socio-economical uh, plot. Today, the other thing has changed, that we are living in a world with too many unknowns. There are far too many unknowns on the horizon. There is not any easy answer these days. Interest rates, inflation continues to rise, supply chain tightens. Yet we must continue to propel ourselves towards meaningful progress. The companies that embrace this moment as an opportunity will quickly arise as the next generation of digital leaders, or quickly prepare themselves as the next generation of digital leaders. They won't be frozen by indecision. A culture of experimentation and continuous delivery can help reducing risk, accelerate delivery time, and capture the value in times of turbulence. Things are changing from collaboration to co-innovation. So see, we talked about globalization. That didn't work anymore, or that doesn't work today. Now it's talking about globalization. People are trying to decouple the economy for the reasons we know, geopolitical reason. So we were taught that globalization is something to drive. We were taught collaborate is something to drive. Now we are saying, oh no, you'll have to co-innovate as a business. So business today is far more collaborative than ever before. Okay, it's also more competitive. Organizations are teaming up to solve global challenges, customer issues, and they're innovating new solutions. Take, for instance, the development of COVID-19 vaccine. The code of the virus was shared by the lab in Wuhan, in China. The vaccine developed in the United States, and it was mass manufactured in India, the most of the vaccines we got, right? All of this accomplished in just 9 months, when normally it takes over a decade to achieve such a momentous breakthrough. Now, talk about semiconductors. There's other example I can think of. They're heart of every electronic product we use, even all the cars we have today, right? And this drives the digital economy. Indeed, the semiconductor industry is a global ecosystem in every sense of the word. Each segment of semiconductor value chain has average 25 countries involved in the direct supply chain and 23 countries involved in supporting market functions. So the components we need to create a semiconductor is not available in any one country. It comes from 25 different countries. In fact, a semiconductor product could cross international borders approx 70 or more times before finally making it to our mobile phones or laptops or to a satellite dish. The shrinking of global supply chains could indeed be counterproductive in this particular case. So there is definitely change. Change is happening around us in the business. But what is happening is that we as leaders perhaps still not understanding that Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Sun Tzu won't work anymore to this generation. You know the Sun Tzu, right? When I was studying management and his famous book of Art of War, like where he quoted, "He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight." This is his quote. Sun Tzu, Chinese philosopher and great strategist of war. Almost every other business leader followed that book, and they try to drive it, gather the inspiration. And No wonder why people are leaving the companies and changing, because they don't link this with their aspiration. Businesses suffer because, again, business is not about the war. It's an infinite game. It's not a finite game. The world, you know, has moved on, and we need to understand that sooner the better. Even if you see the word strategy come from ancient Greek for a general in the military campaign. So strategy equivalent of Greek is general, where it came from. The strategy gurus constantly use analogies with battle plans for competitive advantage versus the enemy. But the metaphor is not suitable anymore, because business, unlike a war or a battle, is not primarily about defeating an enemy. Business is principally about customer values, targeting customer groups, and tailoring products, sales, and other activities to serve those groups better or differently than others. You don't learn much about that from studying Julius Caesar, Napoleon, Sun Tzu, or whoever your favorite general is. So we live in a world where our metaphors we use need to change. So today, what is strategy? It's not about war game. It's fundamentally the movement of an organization from its present position to a desirable but inherently uncertain future position. And the trail always begins with customers. Businesses today is about harnessing knowledge to solve the challenges of our world. Okay, so it is about collaborating, co-innovating. So we need leaders with positive instinct values and integrity. This is also very, very important. So today's workforce look at, are you showing the right amount of integrity and positive instinct, positive values? The value and integrity is becoming more and more important for the current workforce. Therefore, leading in today's world, leaders will have to also understand this. So, on the other hand, leaders should be trustworthy so that they can inspire and empower employees during times of uncertainty to drive transformation and achieve tangible business result. So if you're talking about the new metaphors, it must be built on compassion that ties to turn empathy into action. I'll give you one example that, in our company, we spend a lot of money to come up with a product called mobile money. Mobile money is very successful in Africa as a payment ecosystem. That's the largest payment ecosystem in many countries in Africa, like Ghana and other places. That was created to empower the poorest, because if they keep cash when they transact, you are buying medicine from a medicine shop by paying money, you can be robbed while you are going to the medicine shop, or the medicine shop will be robbed when they're closing because of the cash. So that social problem was taken care of by this product called mobile money, and people started using. 80% of the transaction happens through mobile money. So the compassion makes us take care of those who stay back in the organization as well, right? When we are faced with a great, crisis. So if your company has that kind of mindset, that you add that kind of purpose in front of your people, people will stay. It becomes the cornerstone of critical thinking. When you are faced with this great resignation, Are you a purpose-driven leader? Are you a purpose-driven company? Leadership is also being the safest person in the room. Are people around you feel safe when they interact with you? This is the age of change makers, where leaders will have to have infinite mindset, not the next quarter or next 1 year, because you are in infinite game. Leaders will drive cooperation and collaboration culture. Culture of empathy and humanness. Leaders will demonstrate timely, fact-based, and courageous decision making. And also they will promote a speak-up culture. It's very important. It's a pity. I was hearing Narayan Murthy the other day um, in LinkedIn, some video, and he said it's a pity, right? Most of the leaders, they cut off the feedback channel. They only want to hear what is good and right. They don't want to hear what's going on wrong, perhaps. So organization and leaders need to promote a speak-up culture and show that they are managing the business. Leaders need to demonstrate that they're managing the business based on, a timely, fact-based and courageous decision-making process. So there is transparency. When you take a decision, you take based on empathy and humanness. Of course, there could be harsh business decisions somebody sometime will have to take, but it does not have any conflict with empathy and humanness. As I mentioned at the beginning, that employer, I'll talk about a purpose-driven organization and how leaders can use the purpose and how it works. So leaders will have to put a purpose in front of people. So in my present organization, and in one pocket, there was when we do this annual voice surveys and then try to figure out that the climate of the organization, we get to hear that motivation level low in some corners. One of that pocket was what we call is a global knock. We are a telecommunication company. Majority of the world telephone, mobile traffic moves through our gears, and we have this thing called NOC, network monitoring or network operation centers. So where we monitor all this traffic going through different network nodes, and we try to keep watching those nodes that from green they should not become red. So when they become yellow means there are more load or traffic in that part of the business. What we do, or that part of the network, we try to put that traffic through some other nodes. So there are less amount of call drops and things like that happen. Okay, less congestion. So this knob, this looks very nice. This is futuristic. Like you have hundreds of monitors and there are hundreds of people sitting there. It looks like, Star Wars set when you enter. That people are watching those dots blipping and on the world's map. Their only job is to ensure that, okay, when green turns into yellow, ask some engineers to come and have a look why it's happening and try to fix it so it doesn't become red. And they do it 24/7. This monitoring is very boring. So I went to the north, to the largest one globally we have, and asked people, what are you doing? What do you do? Everybody said, sir, we are monitoring the network traffic, and we are trying to see that, well, this green dot don't become red. That's how they define basically that task, and they do it 24/7, as I said, night shift and all. Very boring. Obviously, the level of motivation is low. So one day we had an all-employee meeting of that group. So I called them and I said, if I were you, how I will define my job? I take a lot of pride in what I do, in every job I have done. So if you ask me and I am doing your job, sitting and monitoring those, if you come and ask me that what am I doing, I will say I am saving lives. Because in countries like India, poor continents like Africa, there are no landline penetration. Mobile phone is perhaps the only way for that poor farmer son to call an ambulance, to take his ailing mother to a nearby hospital for the treatment. And then if he finds that his phone is not working, he will helpless, right? So when I sit here in this room night after night looking at those boring screen, I don't think I'm monitoring the network. I am saving life for people all over the world, right? I added a purpose in front of them. Things changed. So to summarize, I would say, everything changes when companies and leaders make the conscious decision to acknowledge that the world's challenge, the ever-widening gulf of economic inequalities, cannot be solved using sporting or military metaphors of the past. We will need to emphasize, analyze issues, and feel compassionate enough to find out solution, for humanity. It's the only way to find out our way through, you know, through the torrent of unknowns that are coming our way every day. So skills for leading people in current times needs to evolve. I'm not saying we have all the answers, but what I can tell you that we cannot follow the same old concept anymore. Our leadership has to be purpose-driven leadership. And instead of using metaphors from sports or wars, we need to acknowledge that business is an infinite game, and our only purpose is to stay relevant as long as we can. So I just wanted to share this, and I'm looking forward to gather your feedback. And thanks for being such a wonderful audience so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amitabh. So before we take our participants' questions, we will be initiating the poll. Request all participants to kindly share your feedback. While doing so, request all participants to kindly post their questions in the chat window. Once again, I thank all our participants for joining our session today. We have received a lot of inquiry about the participation e-certificate offered by HRAI and GMI. You can claim your e-certificate by sharing your details, name, and session attended in an email to the email ID provided in the chat window. Please ensure you do this by the end of day today. We will email the e-certificates to you based on the details received. So, Mr. Amitabh, we have received one or two questions from the registrations. If you can just go through it. So the question is, what good and mature leadership looks like during pandemic? What are those key traits that have helped leaders to maintain business continuity without much frictions? Few examples.
Very, very good question. I think the first one is easy. Like what worked well for leaders who could demonstrate empathy and humanness, uh, recognizing the serious challenge or threat we faced or humanity faced from the pandemic. Recognizing one thing that you took the job or the work into somebody's house. It is not other way around. So being respectful to that, you don't get agitated as a leader when you are talking to somebody and someone's doorbell is ringing and the person says, okay, I have to attend that. I have seen a lot of people say, no, no, this is work time, and why they will do that, or somebody's dog is barking at the back. So I used to tell people that, look, you need to understand that we, organization, work, encroached people's homes. It is not other way around. You'll have to have respect for that, and respect for people personal time. I today also, and I don't think, in at least in my organization, I have been 100% successful ensuring that we are very respectful about people's personal time. People still give feedback that, oh, managers are setting up calls very late in the evening, or on Saturday, because this work and non-work on home become blurred during this work from home environment, right? So we started forgetting. Well, it's good to take an afternoon nap, and then because I'm the manager, I can set up a call at 7:30 p.m. With my team to review what happened. Okay. So, and then what worked well, I think, of course, the productivity went up, and people got a lot more productive time. If you think, like, I have offices in places like Noida, Gurgaon, Bangalore. Uh, the commute time is 3 hours. Hour and a half easily for many people. So they could use that time productively in the job. So they could finish things on time and then with better quality. So those things definitely work well. The question is, now we talk about, okay, how you can create loyal workforce, how we can create a better organization culture if people are not there and people are constantly working from home, or a lot of people went back to their hometown. Uh, I'm actually working on those. I'm trying to see that, do we need, as I mentioned in my talk today, that loyalty, is it needed? Because loyalty, has it ever existed in the first place? In you know, industrial era, as I mentioned, that people were loyal. Boss was always right because I never had option. The moment people have option, you cannot drive it through loyalty. You'll have to drive to the right values. The current generation, they are more interested about values than anything else. If you can demonstrate the right value, they'll stay with you. And we are messing it up with thinking that, okay, business is about war, business is about a game, and of course we are facing with this great resignation. Right? I don't know, I could answer all or not, but
No, no, yeah,
you
yeah.
can.
Nicely answered, sir. So, but before we go to the next question, though we all know about Great Manager Institute, I would want to welcome Miss Gunjan Chelani, Community and Events Manager, Great Manager Institute, to talk more on Great Manager Institute.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Mr. Amitabh. Um, I am sure all of you have a, a manager who inspires you or who mentors you or coaches you. We at GMI assess individual and organizations wide people manager skills on a framework called Connect, Develop, and Inspire, where it's a subjective plus an objective questionnaire filled by your teammates and yourself to know how great a people manager you are. And one of our example is what you witnessed today, Mr. Amitabh Ray, who was our winner last year, a great people manager 2021, and many more recognitions by Sir. We at GMI are also in process of building a community of these great people managers, and I will be dropping off a link on the comments section to know more about it. So we assess people managers, and then we have our learning and development interventions, workshop, master classes, and mentoring sessions. So if you're curious to know more, you can drop in an email on our website or to me. Um, yeah, thank you so much for your participation today, and thank you so much, HRAI, for making us a part of a huge impact on people management skills.
Thank you, Ms. Gunjan, for letting us know about Great Manager Institute, and thanks for the benefits extended to HRAI members. So, Mr. Amitabh, we will go to the next question. That has come from the participation is, which leadership style do you think is an ideal one, keeping in mind the current business situation, and what, as per you, is the future of servant leadership?
Uh, as I mentioned, leadership with timely, fact-based, and courageous decision making. You could demonstrate that. Uh, Leadership that promotes a speak-up culture. Leadership that you know uh, shows empathy and humanness, and create overall cooperation, collaboration culture. Right. So these are the few areas, if you can work, that you ensure that you are driving cooperation, collaboration, showing empathy and humanness, uh, taking fact-based decisions. So there is a transparency. You are transparent that okay, this is what we have done, and that decision in that case, if you are timely, fact-based decision maker, you will see that some of the decisions might not be to someone's favor, but that person will also respect you at least. Okay. And then promote a speak up culture, ask people to talk. This is what is important. As I was saying that the Narayan Murthy's talk, that people cut off feedback, and that's where it creates problem. And then try to uh, understand that the business we are in is not a war. It's not a game, and the only objective is to stay relevant as long as you can, and then act accordingly. Instead of what happened if you study a lot of use cases where team become dysfunctional, leaders try to drive hard to achieve something instead of driving through the purpose. You drive in a way that okay, this is a war, we'll have to win this, we'll have to get this done, and things like that. And that doesn't work. That demotivates people. And as I was giving example, like if you are a purpose-led leader, I think you always be appreciated more uh, by your team than you are a result-oriented leader. And but there is no conflict in this. The purpose-led leadership can achieve the result, but the way you are doing it is very different. Right? I'm saving poor people's life. Then okay, I'm keeping all the KPIs on my screen green. Same thing, two different approach as leaders.
Thank you, Mr. Mehta. Very beautifully answered. We'll go with one last question. That is, what more can we do to strengthen our company culture and boost our employee satisfaction index?
You know, it can be very generic, whatever I say, because I don't know what are the challenges, right? And then it is not that easy for me to answer without understanding the context. So I'll not
No problem, sir.
go
You can
that
give a
way.
generic answer. I believe that's fine.
I think, as I mentioned, that those five things, if you do, you know, that will be good enough. If you ensure that your people find that in the company that there is a fairness, even the decision is against them, they will appreciate that. Okay, don't drive this command and control uh, attitude as company or leader. You become a purpose-driven organization. Put a purpose which is larger than your company's, how many units you are selling. Okay, that brings the pride. If you feel really proud of what you do and why you do, that is a very, very interesting thing, and drive this sense of cooperation, co-innovation, instead of making people fight in teams. I think that's the last thing you can do, right? And stay positive, drive the empathy and humanness, speak up culture, do fact-based decision making. uh, these are the things will always work, will always work. And of course, there is no linkage between this and performance of the organization. In terms of, okay, if we become more a company, more empathy and humanness, if you're asking our people to drive things, that the performance of the organization will go down. And I can tell you that there are old mindset people like, oh, if I try to be very friendly with our guys, and then they will not listen. See, this is the finite game mindset. That this is the mindset of, I'll have to win. This is the mindset of command and control. It won't work. The day the person will get another opportunity, they will leave. Right? So leaders will have to demonstrate this, they'll have to bring some amount. As I said, that, who is the leader? The safest person in the room. You'll have to, but that's a different theory, right? How to become. There is a way of positioning the person as the safest person in the room. But you'll have to have these traits inside you. Otherwise, they'll not trust you. The trust is very important. Your people will have to trust you as a leader to deliver what you want. So if you want to increase your indexes, you'll have to increase the trust, right? And to increase the trust, you'll have to appear as the safest person in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Amitabh, for this intriguing session. Your experiences and insights were thought-provoking. I'm sure our participants have had a lot to learn and take away from this session. I sincerely thank Great Manager Institute for their association and support extended. Thank you once again, Mr. Amitabh, for this beautiful session. We would love to host you again very soon. Thank you. Also would like to thank all our participants for joining us today. Do join us for our next masterclass by Mr. Srinath Guru Raja Rao, Senior Vice President, HR IT Administration, Simple Energy, on Monday at 3 p.m. That's it from our today's webinar. Hope to see you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I really enjoyed. So you can sign off now.
Yes, Amitabh.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Bye.